The pace of change just keeps accelerating and the magnitude of change keeps accelerating. And definitely the skill set that leaders need has evolved and is evolving. So I would say that leadership is more critical than ever.
Welcome to today's Solactive Product Talk. My name is 𝗏𝗄𝗄𝗃, responsible for equity index structuring at Solactive. And my guest today is Janeen Gelbart, CEO of Indiggo. Welcome, Janeen.
Thanks for having me.
Janeen, for those who do not know Indiggo, what does your company stand for? Where do you come from and what's your philosophy?
We've been in the leadership field and passionate about this topic of leadership for decades. We were born out of a leadership consultancy, working with leaders and boards across industries, always focused more on the action versus the theory of leadership.
Great. And was there, looking back for you, Janeen, any defining moment or engagement that fundamentally changed your or Indiggo's philosophy in that regard?
Not a defining moment per se, but I would say that working with thousands of leaders over the years, we kept seeing repeated patterns of, where leaders fell down and where they succeeded. And we mostly saw them fail in execution. It's very easy to create what you want to do. It's very hard to get it done. And we landed up very much focusing on both sides of the coin and developing the ReturnOnLeadership methodology, really looking as much as what leaders are doing than what they're saying. So the framework evolved over many years of really refining what organizations needed to succeed.
And in your time, in the decades of working for sure with various leaders, with leadership teams, was there anything you consistently observed about the relationship between leadership and a company's quality and a company's quality of performance as well, of course?
Yes, obviously a very direct, intuitively one knows the influence that leaders have, and there could not be a more direct correlation between leadership capacity and outcomes. Obviously, there are external influences that nobody can control, geopolitical, real-time information highway, and other challenges that leaders face. But within what one can control, I would say that leadership is one of the biggest conduits to success or failure. And even, by the way, with the challenges, it's how leaders handle those challenges. So even then, it comes back to leadership.
And Janeen, you just mentioned geopolitics. Of course, we currently have quite some disruptions in the market, also in equity capital markets. Looking at AI, for example, do you think leadership in general has become more relevant and more important when looking at all of those disruptions, or is it something you think has not really evolved in that regard?
Well, I don't think it's become more important. It's always been important. At the same time, it seems like the pace of change just keeps accelerating and the magnitude of change keeps accelerating. And definitely the skill set that leaders need has evolved and is evolving. So I would say that leadership is more critical than ever. And really we need to start thinking about what's the most important aspect of leadership to really thrive and survive today as an organization. And
do you think maybe getting back to the role of AI, do you expect it, or is it currently already significantly changing the role of leadership? Do we see a disruption already?
I wouldn't say it's disrupting the role of leadership. It's maybe disrupting the things that leaders focus on. I think we're quite a ways away from the actual role of leadership being disrupted. But definitely, there's a need for much more agility, flexibility, and innovation. And so it's changing how the leaders need to lead, but not the actual role itself.
We're currently looking also at a financial product. Potentially, we are an index provider. After working with leaders and leadership teams for so long, at what point did you realize that there is potentially a benefit for investors? So, did you think, okay, it might make sense to transfer all the knowledge you have into maybe in systematic investment strategies for retail investors, for example?
As I mentioned earlier, we started pretty early on looking at measuring leadership somehow. And in 2020, we started a partnership with Fortune where we were measuring and ranking the Fortune 100 companies. And the first year we saw an instant correlation between companies that ranked high on return on leadership. And we landed up seeing this correlation year after year. Companies that rank high had better financial outcomes. And this really led to us understanding that we had something very powerful that was missing in the investment world. And we took that journey to the product and the index that we have with you today.
When looking at the actual strategy, Janeen, we built together the Solactive Indiggo Return on Leadership US Large Cap Index, our first strategy out there. How do you think it fundamentally differentiates from the broad market benchmark we have out there, like a US 500, for example?
Very different, because this index is based on a leadership ranking, based on leadership metrics, within the return on leadership framework. So number one, it's not by size or any other way that you might approach an index. This is really based on the return on leadership scores. And then second of all, even the index itself is leadership score weighted versus market cap weighted. So different both in the way we deliver the content and the actual weighting of the index.
And why do you think investors, retail investors, institutional investors should care about the quality of leadership when constructing their portfolio? Are they potentially missing out on potential chances and opportunities if they don't do so?
We've been discussing the degree to which leadership impacts outcomes, and I think that's really intuitive to everyone. Now that we have a way to really have insight into this, I would turn the question around and say, how could they not take leadership into account? That's
actually a good point. And if we look at the historical performance of also the strategy we developed together, we definitely can see there is quite an advantage to this. So we do see a strong performance also compared to broad market indices. And we don't have a strong tech bias, for example. So do you think that's really just a signal, or is it really a proof of concept or something else even?
I think it's really a tangible proof to an obvious concept.
And I think the good news for investors out there, for retail investors that are now curious, the concept is already investable through an ETF out there together with our partner 𝗏𝗏, right?
Yes, 𝗏𝗏 has launched the first ROL ETF based on this index. The ticker is 𝗂𝗂𝗁𝗏, and we're delighted to partner with them and with you on this really exciting initiative.
Really great. Very excited.
Yes.
Looking at the 𝗏𝗏 ETF, now the first US index being live, is this index just the beginning of a broader leadership-based investment approach, potentially also with other concepts over the next few years?
Definitely. ROL really provides a very rich terrain of data, and we plan to launch a family of indices, different aspects of the markets reflecting the leadership within those specific areas. So yes.
Thanks a lot. Janeen Gelbart, CEO of Indiggo, thanks a lot for joining our product talk today. Thanks a lot for sharing some details and background on return on leadership. And for all the interested viewers and listeners, stay tuned, follow our LinkedIn channel. There will be more to come regarding return on leadership and systematic investment strategies.
Thanks for having me.